I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
We're the hosts of Geek Nights, the late night podcast radio show for
Geek
kids.
Nights, maybe?
Geek Nights.
Yeah.
And we're here to talk about recommending anime because we know that many of you out there at anime conventions want to get your friends to watch whatever stupid show you're watching right now.
Yeah, you have people in your life who are not anime fans. Every single person does. And you want them to maybe watch some anime. Maybe they have some, preconceived notions of it. Like I just met someone who was like, thought all anime was porn. And then, their friend who was like, no, it's not, showed them an anime and it was porn. And they're like, now they think that all anime is porn even more.
Or even your anime watching friends. You really, really, really want them to watch like Cowboy Bebop because it's your favorite show, but you're the same dude who recommended Dragon Ball to them and they want nothing to do with you anymore. For some reason, no one listens to anyone's anime recommendations. So we're going to talk about why people listen to our recommendations. Because there's
or should listen but don't.
There's a trick to it. It turns out that the reason most of you out there don't listen to your friends when they tell you to watch their show is because they're selling you the show in the worst possible way, or they're selling the show to you for them and not for you. So let's get right into this. If you're trying to recommend anime to someone, why? Who? What is this person after? Is it some like Dragon Ball guy? He's wearing a Dragon Ball t-shirt, he's got a Dragon Ball tattoo, he lives, eats, and breathes Dragon Ball? Is it your mom? Is it your teacher? Is it your kid? No one seems to think about who they're actually recommending their anime to, and then perhaps craft their recommendations toward that person's taste.
You think it's the most obvious thing in the world, right? If I want to recommend an anime to Rim, I should think about what anime Rim would like. 99% of people just immediately name like their favorite shows, whatever they like, and say, you should watch this, I like it. You just think for like a minute, maybe there's a show you hate, but you know the show is out there, and you know this person likes things that are in that show. Like, I got a friend who loves cars. I actually like Initial D, but pretend I hated Initial D, because it's a bad show. It is a bad show. And I know he's a super car nut. He's got a riced-out car. He's got like a garage full of 3 cars, right? You should watch Initial D, dude. Right? That's how it goes.
Now, in terms of knowing your target, you really think about whether or not they're an anime watcher or not. A lot of people who ask these questions about how to recommend anime are trying to get their parents, in particular, to watch anime. And I remember as a kid, I was just watching Sailor Moon. I had fan subs of all of it, and I was plowing through like Sailor Moon Super S. My dad would occasionally walk in, he'd look at the screen, and just shake his head, and walk out of the room. So one day, he sits down, because I was watching something else. I was watching Tenchi Muyo. There happened to be Ryoko, and I think she was naked. It was, it was one of those shows. And he just looks at it and starts watching for a while. And then the next morning at breakfast, he's like, some of that anime might be pretty good.
No, you don't say.
So if I had to recommend anime to a dad, any dad, almost universally, I'll recommend Cowboy Bebop.
Well, I mean, that's human being.
But particularly dads have had a lot of good success talking to like our fans and like their dad, like, hey, you should watch Cowboy Bebop. It's a really good show. It's the kind of thing that would be on HBO if America wasn't worried about cartoons.
If it wasn't 10 plus years old.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, much more importantly, because this is where a lot of you, the royal you, mess this up. Everyone who recommends anime, especially in anime cons and in anime communities in the US, recommend it for their own selfish reasons. I'm recommending my show that I like to all of you because I want to talk about it with you. I want the fandom to be with you. I don't care about what you like. I just want you to watch the show because you not watching it, 1, makes me feel bad because I like this show that no one else will watch, and 2, I have no one to nerd out about it.
Right, now that is a goal that is very, very hard to achieve, right? What you have to do is you have to aim for something that is achievable, right? Maybe you want to make that person an anime fan because they're not an anime fan right now. That is maybe achievable, but not necessarily, right? Can I turn my mom into like an anime maniac, right? That's not going to be easy, right? But what can I achieve? I can make my mom go to the theater to see Miyazaki movies on her own without me prompting her to, and to know who Miyazaki is. That's about as far as I can get. That's achievable. I have achieved that, right? So, aim at something you can get. Right? Maybe I can make this person not into an anime fan, but maybe I can make them into like a shonen fighting fan or something, right? You can get somewhere with them.
Yep, the anime community seems to get very sort of myopic and introspective and looks at everything in terms of anime fandom. I'm trying to spread anime fandom generically, and as soon as you do that, that's like trying to spread watching TV. or movies, or comic books in a completely generic sense, all comic books in the world.
Yeah, no matter how much anime people watch, not all the people who watch it are going to want to come here. I have coworkers who watch anime. He's like, I think the first day we hired him, he's like, it's a good show, Full Metal Alchemist, right? Would that dude ever be caught dead here? Hell no, right? Not in a million years, right? So, with a guy like that, it's like, all I can really do is say, hey, there's a show similar to shows you've told me you like, maybe you'd want to watch it. Right, and maybe he'll watch it, but he's never going to become a super fan, he's never going to go crazy. If I try to aim to make him a super fan and start telling him to watch shows that are not, in his alley and only super fans would enjoy, he's going to be like, what the hell are you telling me? He's not going to listen to me from then on.
Now, there's a more subtle point here, too. Even if it's an anime fan, I'm trying to get Scott to watch a show, whatever it might be. Am I trying to get him to watch that show because it's just like all the other things he likes? Yo, I know you like Firefly. You should watch this Cowboy Bebop show. It has space stuff in it. Or am I trying to get him to watch something that's out of his comfort zone? This is the opposite of everything you like, but I think you should watch it to broaden your horizon. The latter is one of the most difficult tasks anyone can try to undertake.
Yeah, and if you're trying to you can make that sale, right? But when you make the sale, you have to honestly sell it, right? You can't be like, oh no, you're going to love this show. You're basically lying to them, right? You know it's a show that's probably going to be challenging for them, right? You're telling them they're going to want it, they're going to like it, so that, they'll get their butt in the seat, right? You have to be honest. You have to be like, look, you're probably not going to like this show, but I think that, it's something you need to see to understand something else, right? Or when I tell people to watch Ava, it's like, yeah, I think Ava's the greatest show ever, right? But a lot of people hate it. If you look on the internet, it's like 50-50. But whether you like it or not, it's important to watch.
Now watch this turnabout. The way to sell Ava is to say, look, this show, everyone hates on it on the internet, right? People have been hating on this show for over a decade. They keep talking about it constantly. It keeps getting remade. If it's good or if it's bad, it's at least important. So if you say you're an anime fan, watch this show. Even if you hate it, if you haven't seen it, that's like the film critic who's never seen Citizen Kane.
Yeah. So instead of trying to sell them like you're going to like this show, they're looking forward to it. Instead, you go the route you make them feel bad. Like you call yourself an anime fan and you haven't seen this. Now they feel like they need to watch it. It's going to go higher up on their list.
Now everything we just said is still pretty common knowledge. So I think what I want to do is give you the tricks and traps. These are the things that anime fans in particular, more so than any fandom I've ever run into, except perhaps Homestuck fandom, make these mistakes, and this is why no one listens to your anime recommendations, and often wouldn't listen to mine. Seriously, just because I like Initial D, I know that almost no one in this audience would actually like Initial D. It is the dumbest show, but I really like it.
It was
So,
okay.
never recommend anime that you like if you have no reason to recommend it to someone else at all, other than that you like it, because they don't care. It's just some guy talking, always talking about that anime thing he likes.
Yeah.
Okay, now he's done.
A good way to tell if it's a show that just you like, right, is to look at your friends who are already anime fans and see how many of them also buy merch for that show or talk about it with you, right? And if it's only one or two others and you have some haters in the group, it's probably a show with a narrow focus. If it's a show that every single one of your anime friends is into, I think everyone I know that's an anime fan watched Madoka and loved it, right? So that's probably a broader appeal than Initial D, where I think only 3 people I know besides me like it.
So, if you're trying to get a non-anime fan to watch anime, don't recommend the anime inside baseball bullshit. Boba Bo 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 is a great show if you're an anime fan who knows the tropes of shonen fighting shows. Excel Saga means nothing to someone who has not seen a ton of anime. It might seem wacky and funny and crazy to all of us because we're in this fandom. Your mom's just going to shake her head.
Yeah, think about it bosses in some kind of RPG, right? You can't just go and fight, Lavos from the bucket.
Well, you can.
You can, but you're going to die, right? You just get instantly, right? So Excel Saga is like Lavos. You can't go there yet, right? Until they've watched 100 animes, you can't enjoy Excel Saga. It's got to be the 101st anime you watch. If you make that the 3rd anime someone watches, they're going to think all anime is like that. The less anime someone has seen, every anime they do see, they're going to take that and put that image onto all other anime they haven't seen yet and think it's like that.
Now,
If someone thinks all other anime is like Excel Saga, you ruin them for the rest of their lives.
Now, this is something, remember Scott's example earlier about the guy who thought all anime was porn. That was actually a big problem in the 90s because the way anime was marketed in the US, starting with the Sci-Fi Saturday, was violent, awesome, crazy, porny cartoons from Japan. That guy just got cut in half. That guy exploded. And they sold anime like that. That's how I got into it. My mom forced me to watch Vampire Hunter D when I was in 4th grade. I didn't want to.
Because it's like that Castlevania thing you like?
It was like that Castlevania thing I liked, and she made me watch it. And that's how I became an anime fan. But anime fandom, both in the US and UK, was driven by this sort of, these are cartoons for adults, they're hardcore and crazy. So people who didn't actually watch them saw that advertising, or saw maybe like Vampire Hunter D because their friends saw it, and they just assumed all anime was like that. And then fans who were into anime watched mostly stuff like that. So if someone said, hey, what's that anime all about? They would show them Demon City Shinjuku, or Wicked City, or Urotsuka Doji. And that's where that perception that all anime is porn came from. Now everyone thinks all anime is this crazy BS, because that's the stuff that all of us know about. It's like the advanced crazy wine that the wine guy says, oh, this has hints of chocolate and raspberry, and yet no one else can taste it because he's the only one who knows.
Yeah, the reverse sort of situation also happened, right? There are a lot of people out there, older people, like 30 plus, who saw those violent or sexual animes in the 90s, and they sort of maybe liked them. They watched 1 or 2 or 3, right? And now, anime now, they're like, man, what happened to anime? Now it's just a bunch of like, little naked girls. What the fuck's up with that?
But again, that's because they're not in the inside anymore. They don't see the other better shows that would come out, because that's what they see from the outside looking in at the fandom. Overselling. You all know that guy. Every time you see him, he's like, hey, have you watched Full Metal Alchemist yet? It's the best show. And then he starts talking about it, and you can't stop him. Everyone knows a guy like that. The more you do that, the less likely it is anyone is going to watch a show, even if it's a good show. I bothered Scott to watch Adventure Time even forever, and he resisted partly because I was super annoying about it.
No, I mean, everything is in the queue somewhere.
Yeah,
It's not like...
but the point is, once you say, hey, you should watch X, and someone says, yeah, I'll get to it at some point, don't bother them about it again. It's in their queue, and if it's not in their queue, they're never going to watch it. We had a friend, Luke, way back, when Full Metal Alchemist was just coming out in America. We were at Otakon for the Largo CL concert that they had. And we're sitting around, and they played the first episode of Full Metal Alchemist on the screen. And our friend Luke goes, that's what Full Metal Alchemist is about? Oh my god, that show looks awesome.
He had resisted watching it. Everyone else was crazy into it at the time, watching every episode as it came out, as quickly as it was fan-subbed, right? And he was resisting it because it was so popular, right? Now, obviously, that's a problem with him, right? Thinking that because the show is popular, it's not good, right? But at the same time, you can't change that person, right? Give up on that. But what you can do is, if you know that person is like that, don't keep pushing it onto them. Like, basically, every time you met him, it's like, you watch Full Metal Alchemist yet? No. You haven't seen it yet? That means you keep doing things like that. He's not going to watch it. He's like, yeah, I want to be the guy who still hasn't seen it yet. That's
and you all know, you do it, I do it, everyone does it. The moment you're all sitting around and someone's like, yeah, blah, 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 Boondock Saints, and then everyone's like, what? You haven't seen Boondock? They're never going to watch it.
That's right. They now want to be that guy who hasn't seen that. As soon as they see it, they lose. They're now in with the crowd and everyone else. There's nothing special about them anymore. Right? Another kind of overselling is where you say something is way better than it is, and then if they actually do watch it, now they're underwhelmed because the expectations were set too high, right?
There have been numerous studies showing that if someone goes into anything with low expectations, and whatever the thing was exceeds their expectations, they like it more on an absolute scale than if they expected it to be good, and it was as good as they expected.
Take, for example, Death Note, right? Everyone knows if you read the Death Note manga, or I guess the anime, which I didn't watch because I read the manga, halfway through there's a big change, and it basically turns into like a different series, right? And a lot of people say, that second half is no good. The first half is the best. Second half, no good. But if you just took that second half and put it on its own, right? Not comparing it to the first half, which it honestly is not as good as, it'd be pretty good. It's like a B, and it's not bad.
It's like if you go to Cedar Point, the biggest roller coaster park in the world, and you ride the third tallest roller coaster first, it's awesome. And then you ride the first tallest one, and it's awesome. If you ride the first one first, then the third one feels really weak.
Yeah, it's all about relative, sort of emotions here, right? So, because that second half of Death Note was attached to the much better first half of Death Note, it looked worse than it was, right? So when you're telling someone about a new show, be like, hey, you should check this show out, it's pretty cool. Don't be like, oh my god, this show is the best thing ever, right? That maybe will convince them if they believe you that it's the best thing ever.
But you have to build up a reputation of giving good advice in the first place.
And if they really like it, but don't really like it, they might actually be like, meh, because the expectations were too much.
Now, another sort of side example here is I got Full Metal Alchemist. I got a show that many people don't remember anymore called Fushigi Yugi. Anime fans care about it, but you know how popular when Full Metal Alchemist was first coming out, and then when Brotherhood came out, like everyone was cosplaying as it, it was in the Artist Alley ever, it was like the big deal, oh my god, you haven't seen this show? Fushigi Yugi was that show when we were going to Otakons and anime conventions in the early 2000s. Equally popular. This is the greatest show ever, it will be known for all time, and now it's forgotten. Full Metal Alchemist will be mostly forgotten within 5 or 10 years.
Nadeshiko, also a show that was super popular, and then where'd it go?
People used to be like, oh yeah, the great anime, you know, like Evangelion, Escaflowne, Nadeshiko. No one watches Nadeshiko anymore. So you have to always take any recommendation you're going to give with the sort of lens of time. I rarely recommend anime that I've seen for the first time in the most recent year, because I don't know if it's going to hold up. I know that Escaflowne holds up pretty well because I watched it like a decade ago and I watched it again relatively recently. I know Eva holds up because it continues to hold up year after year. A lot of shows I would have recommended 5 years ago, I would not recommend to anyone today.
Yeah, so the older a show is, the longer span of time it has been popular for, right, the greater chance that show is actually good. If a show is like the latest hits, you know, it's like super hot right now, but it hasn't been hot for a long time yet, it might fade away and be just a fad. Don't recommend it to new people yet.
Now, the reason for that is that if you want people to trust your recommendations, you have to build up a reputation in your group of friends as being that guy who always brings the cool stuff to the table. So to cheat, only recommend the older stuff you know is good. And another reason why this is cheating is that because so much anime has been made from the beginning of anime until now, you can cherry pick the very best shows. And suddenly, you're the guy who brings solid gold to the screenings every night.
This is also a mistake the anime industry made, right? When they first started bringing anime to the US, they were looking over like 2 or 3 decades worth of anime and taking the best shows only. So we thought all anime is awesome. Because you're only really, I mean, they were bringing over bad things too, but mostly they were bringing over good anime here and translating it. If something was a piece of crap, they didn't bring it over here. No one's going to spend money on it.
Now, piece of crap, relative, because MD Geist is actually one of the more popular shows they released.
Sure, right. But, you know, then eventually what happened is they got around 2003, 4-ish, they started basically bringing out every show in Japan, right? Good or bad. Any show that came out in Japan, they licensed it and put it on DVDs here. And oh crap, these things aren't selling, guys. And we said, hey, there's bad anime out there. Oh.
So if you want to trick your friends into watching your shows, just everything we just said just boils down to don't be that guy who goes, oh my god, you haven't seen blah! And try not to recommend stuff that you just watched, because you're going to be way more excited about it now than you will be a year from now.
I guess if they haven't seen Akira, then you can say, oh my god, you haven't seen Akira, what is wrong? But otherwise, no, that's not really.
So, another common trap is summarizing poorly. I think many of you might be too young to even know what that's a picture of. I'm not even going to explain it. One guy knows what that's a picture of. So, I had a friend, and this friend of mine, named Adam, was told to watch a show called Irresponsible Captain Tyler, which is a fantastic show that is largely unknown among American fans.
You can actually buy it on like DVD. Really
it is
cheap.
a fantastic show.
Full series.
Now, there are many ways you could sell this show to someone. I might sell it to you as...
You just did sell it.
Is it Legend of the Galactic Heroes? Have you seen that? This is a parody / homage of Legend of the Galactic Heroes. It is. It is also, many elements of the show were inspiration for Gurren Lagann. In fact, the sunglasses in Gurren Lagann are straight up in this. There's scenes with him on the bridge wearing those same sunglasses, doing the same kind of stuff. You could say that this show is the story of the Buddha. For real, a lot of people have written papers about how this show is the story of the Buddha set in space.
You really like Siddhartha? Why don't you watch Captain Tyler?
It's a space opera camaraderie comedy. I use that term a lot. Camaraderie comedy is something you see often in anime. Where
Usually people call it buddy comedy.
Yeah, but
you're trying to be fancy with your words.
Well, because it's a little different. Buddy comedy often is the duo. You know, the two guys, the Manzai pair. But in a lot of anime, there's the group, the sort of gallery of idiots, like in Urusei Yatsura or Patlabor. There's just like 12 dudes, and they're all just kind of weird, and they all just kind of hang out together and have their internal dynamic. And the show's comedy is mostly derived from that dynamic. This is one of those shows done better than most of them have ever been done. But no, this guy's friend says, oh, it's like Inspector Gadget in space.
In a small way, it's true.
Yes.
Very small.
He hated Inspector Gadget. I hate Inspector Gadget.
I like Inspector Gadget.
I never liked Inspector Gadget.
I like Penny more.
Because he was told that this amazing, pushing into the A territory show was like this, he didn't watch it for like 7 years. And when he finally watched it, it's one of his favorite shows of all time. Don't summarize shows badly or no one will watch them. You have to talk about the core conceit of the show from the perspective of the person you're trying to get to watch it. You have to sell it to them in a package that fits in with what they want. So, spoilers isn't necessarily a bad thing. The trap is not using spoilers. Spoiling aspects of a show is often the best way to get someone to watch that show. And, as Scott has brought up several times in many panels in the past, there are numerous studies showing that in the end, if you show someone a show and spoil an aspect of it, even a critical aspect before or after, on average, people like shows that are spoiled for them more than shows that are not spoiled.
They don't think they like it more, but if you like survey them, right, they actually do like it more. Think about, say, Empire Strikes Back, right? Yeah, I guess everyone in this room should know what the deal is in that movie, but if I put it on right now, I don't think anyone's leaving the room, right? It's still fantastic, even though you know what the hell is going on, right? And a lot of anime are the same way. A lot of anime, like what's actually going on, might not be something that appears for like a few episodes. You know, something like Madoka or Eva, right? So if you don't know that the show isn't really what it is in the first episode when you start watching and you're a stubborn person, you might not get past episode 1. So you sort of have to tell them, no, look, keep watching this because, spoiler, a few episodes in, the shit gets serious, right? And this is how serious it gets. Now, they spoiled it, but at the same time, you've added the intrigue that's going to keep them in the seat.
Now, there's a fine line. Don't spoil the end of Cowboy Bebop. Now you're just a dick. But what we did, and actually the next panel in this room is how to run an anime club. We ran the biggest anime club in America for several years, RIT Anime. And the first screening I ever went to when I was a freshman in college in the year 2000, we show up, we sit down, and they showed 5 episodes of different animes. So an episode of the one thing, episode of another thing, episode of another thing. One of the things they showed was not the first episode of Cowboy Bebop, but the 5th episode. That one, with the crazy fight, and with all that iconic imagery that's in 99% of Cowboy Bebop anime music videos. They showed that episode first. I remember sitting in the audience, and this girl next to me was like, oh my god, Cowboy Bebop, this is the episode where Spike fights Vicious. If you don't know what Cowboy Bebop's about, and you hear character names like Spike and Vicious having a fight in a show called Cowboy Bebop, what the hell is this show going to be? But by showing this episode, episode 5, they hooked everyone into watching the entire show.
Episode 1 is still pretty good, but it's not going to hook you like episode 5 does.
Episode 5 shows you the elements of the show that many of the fans care about almost more than the other aspects. And while the other aspects are just as important, sometimes the core of a show is what actually gets someone to watch it. For example, Trigun is a derpy comedy for about 6 episodes. But really...
You could even argue up until like episode 13 it's a derpy comedy.
Yeah. But no, really, it's okay to spoil that Trigun is actually an analysis of pacifism as a failed philosophy. Something that should be striven for, but is actually impossible to achieve. In fact, a very specific thing you can do, without actually spoiling what happens, is say the number of an episode. Wait till you get to episode 23. Someone dies.
Or like when I tell people at Madoka, I'm like, watch out for episodes 3 and 10. Right? And it's like, I'm telling them something, right? So they're about to watch episode 10. They're like, oh, ooh.
So I popped the slide up, and people who have seen Madoka made this little sort of, So who here has not seen Madoka Magica?
Why not? Seriously.
Okay, so all of you raise your hands. So, you haven't seen Madoka Magica?
Oh my god, and you're at an anime con and you call yourself an anime friend?
So, it looks like a happy magical girl show. All I'm saying, not to spoil anything, episode 3, someone dies, shit gets real. That show is dark, that show is brutal, that show is sad. I cried like 4 times during Madoka. So notice how I'm spoiling that the show has a twist, that the feel of the show changes. It's not what it appears to be. I didn't say who dies. I didn't spoil the direct things, but I spoiled that something's going on that isn't apparent from the beginning to trick people into watching on. And you're going to remember all this business here with that little dude. You think Utena is about people in high school? Or no, it's about cars.
It's about people who put into cars.
If you like cars, you like the show. It goes well with Initial D, like as a 2-feature.
In fact, I actually, for Utena, Shoujo Kakumei Utena, again, we're doing a YouTube show about Utena, flyers, whatever. But it's a show that the very beginning doesn't really let you in on just what the hell this show turns into by the end, and what the show is really about. So, multiple people in my life have been unwilling to watch Utena, because they see that and they think it's just going to be some boring shoujo. So the way I've sold it to them is I have them watch, I think it's episode 18, where huge spoilers in that episode. Someone duels that you don't know is going to duel. You learn all this stuff about the show you're not supposed to know yet. It spoils a crazy tone of the show. But it doesn't spoil the important stuff at the end of the show, and it shows why the show is so crazy and where the show gets to. So if you show someone episode 18 of Utena, they're going to watch the beginning episode and be like, wait a minute, how does that show get to... They're going to keep watching.
Another good idea is maybe show them like some badass music video instead of, an AMV, instead of the actual episode. And that AMV might have some spoilers in it, because a lot of them do. But especially if it's just like quick shots, like they may not catch it, or they might like question, like, oh, maybe that person doesn't actually die, even though they just died in that AMV.
The opening of Evangelion.
Right.
The opening actually serves. A lot of people kind of skip openings, but the opening of Evangelion kind of hints that maybe the show isn't just about kids fighting giant robots. Maybe it's about sad kids and their dads.
Especially if you slow down the really fast part.
So, this is a picture that I love, because we used to
I
run...
had hair, what?
That was an Otakon a long time ago. So, we run a panel often called Anime You Should See, or Anime You Didn't Think You... They're all the same panel, we just give it a different title every year. And basically, we try to get everyone to watch a show called Princess Tutu.
You should watch Princess. Apparently we did a good job, so we're good at selling anime.
I think we actually caused a big resurgence in this show, because when we first tried to recommend
think it was you.
Princess Tutu, it was at Otakon, this giant room.
This ego balloon is pushing me off the stage.
No one in the audience has seen it. People were like, this is weird. We showed an AMV, and we told them the show is dark. It's like a baby's first version of Utena in a lot of ways. And the next year, at Otakon, we ran the exact same panel with a different name. And we're about to do our thing. We bring out Princess Tutu, and then these people stand up in the back, dressed up as characters from Princess Tutu.
They might have been, I don't know, I'm going to give them credit and say they were the first US Princess Tutu cosplayers.
They stood up and said that they watched Princess Tutu because we tricked them into watching it from the previous Otakon, and came back to the panel to make sure that everyone in that room watched Princess Tutu. So if you've not seen Princess Tutu, which it seems like some of you haven't,
don't take our word for it, take their word.
It's about cars.
I think it's actually about clocks.
It's dark. It's serious. It's about solipsism and free will, and the relationship between a storyteller and a story, and a reader of a story.
And ducks.
So now, I want to take some asides to actually try to sell you on some anime. So notice how we sell this stuff. Dominion Tank Police is a show where crime has gotten so bad in the future that the police drive tanks wider than the streets to fight said crime.
And it's made by the guy who made Ghost in the Shell.
See, I don't even know what the show's about other than tanks. But seriously, these tanks will tear down the street, going after like a guy who robbed a liquor store, and the street is being torn up behind them. Millions of dollars in property damage, probably thousands killed. They were 11.
So check this out. You got some kids, and they're basically in Space Harvard, or they want to get into Space Harvard. And to get into Space Harvard, they need to pass this incredibly difficult entrance exam. It's sort of a metaphor for the Japanese entrance exams, right? It's basic, but it's all outer space, right? So they send 10 people into a space station where they have to survive, right? And if they don't survive, they don't get into Space Harvard. And when they get into the spaceship and turn on the lights, there's 11 people.
Now, the rules of the thing are pretty good. If they call for help, they'll be rescued by space police, but none of them get into Space Harvard. If anyone dies, none of them get into Space Harvard. So the whole beginning of this is, what do we do? Do we call home? Do we not? And the movie just goes off from there. It's like a procedural drama in space. It's high tension. It's old shoujo. Old shoujo, because you guys realize shoujo now, you think, is a certain kind of show. Shoujo back then was basically all sci-fi.
The other thing with this show is that, nowadays you have a lot of these things where there's a plot based on rules, like Death Note. Like, what are the rules of the Death Note? And 9 doors, 9 persons, right, that DS game. Like, what are the rules of the, Battle Royale? People get stuck in these situations with weird rules and circumstances. And this is like the earliest instance of that I can find. There might be an earlier one, but, this is sort of, all of those sort of spawned out of this.
Now, another good way to recommend, this is a movie. This is just one thing. You just watch it and you're done. It's way easier to get people to watch short OAVs or movies than it is to get them to watch 200 episodes of Sailor Moon, plus Ami-chan no Hatsukoi, the special, and the 3 movies.
It's also easier to recommend something with an English title like They Were 11 that people can understand, instead of something that only has a Japanese name like something something no Hamori-chan. It's like people don't know what the hell that is unless they're already, into the shows.
Now, this show, separately, once we have a friend who designs role-playing games. That's his job. So the way I sold it to him was, hey, watch this movie and make it into a role-playing game, I swear to God.
He still has it though.
He still has the DVD though.
No, he gave it back. I think.
Did he?
Yeah.
Interstellar 5555 is a Daft Punk music video movie with Leiji Matsumoto animation. What's not to love about that? Unless you don't like Daft Punk or Leiji Matsumoto.
Yeah, I mean, a lot more people like Daft Punk than like anime. So if someone already likes Daft Punk, you can find crossovers like this, right? You already like this, right? Watch this thing that goes with that. And now you like the anime part too, right? So now it's like a bridge, right? There are plenty of other bridges out there. Maybe somebody likes basketball, you can make them watch Slam Dunk, right? And then you can get them to go to other anime that aren't about basketball.
Now, a problem here. How many of you don't know who Leiji Matsumoto is?
Dun dun dun.
So, Captain Harlock, Galaxy Express 399, the tall, wafy girl with long blonde hair, and the
Space
big Russian
Battleship
hat.
Yamato, right?
Yeah, all that stuff, same dude, Leiji Matsumoto.
Right. This is another important thing, right? When you want to sell people on anime, you need to know the names or who created which animes, right? Because maybe one of your friends, right, likes an anime already, and then you know the person who directed that. And you're like, oh, you like that? Well, you're going to like all these other things.
You like Paranoia Agent? Well, here, let's watch Tokyo Godfathers.
Yeah. Oh, you like Totoro? Well, have you seen Spirited Away? No. What's that? Oh, my God.
Now, think back to your goal. Why are you trying to recommend anime? Throwing out the names doesn't help because a lot of anime fans don't know any of the names.
That's why you say the same person who made that made this.
But you knowing them means you can cheat and very easily recommend a show someone will like based on the other shows they like.
By using Anime News Network.
Even if you haven't seen those shows. Giant Robo is an opera about giant robots. Giant Robo has leitmotifs. Giant Robo has a soundtrack like you would see in a Hollywood blockbuster movie from the 90s. Giant Robo is homage to every giant robot show that has ever been made up to this point. Giant Robo has crazy drama about how it was produced. It almost wasn't made. There were lawsuits. The Guild of Calamitous Intent in Venture Brothers is modeled heavily on the stylistic sort of villains of this show.
I'm not a fan of Giant Robo.
See how there's all these different ways to sell it. Giant Robo, if I was to sell it to all of you right now, is a show that the only way I would recommend it is to get a copy of it, pirate it if you have to, and just watch the first 20 minutes. It starts in media res, in the middle of the action with no explanation, and the whole series ends in media res, in the middle of the action with no explanation. That opening scene is just this crazy sort of robot-driven, steampunk-looking, on a train, flying through a city, bunch of characters, you don't know who the good guys are. If you watch that sequence and you don't like it, you'll hate Giant Robo. If you watch that sequence and you love it, Giant Robo is going to be one of your favorite shows ever. Some shows, the only way to get someone to really get into it is to trick them into watching the first 10 or 20 minutes of the show. And I can think of no better example than Giant Robo. Bicycle.
Yeah.
Bicycle.
I watched this because I saw this was in the days where there's more fan subs going on, and I just saw on the fan sub torrent list Nasu Summer in Andalusia. I'm like, what the heck is that?
Has anyone in this room seen this anime?
I doubt it. No.
No one. Wow. Okay. So what this is about is just a single one-off story about a dude who's on a cycling team, and he overhears, I'm spoiling some stuff, from his team that he's going to be cut from the team after this race. He's just going to be replaced. So, because he knows this in the race, he decides to break away from the pack and try to win it on his own instead of following the team strategy.
If you know anything about bicycling, that's pretty much impossible.
So, the way this show goes is it's just him on his bike and his thoughts, and every now and then it cuts to his family watching him on TV. And it's really slow and really sort of ultra-realistic and really sort of based on family and flashbacks and memories and description. It's not like any other show you're ever really going to see.
I can't believe this even got made into an anime. It's kind of crazy.
There's no reason for it to be animated except that it happens to be animated. Yet it's great. The animation is stellar. The show is so well done and so well put together, and the talent behind it was actually a really big deal, and it's just completely unknown in the US. So, I'll sell it to you right now. If you want to be that guy in your friend group who knows about the anime that no one else knows about, and you bring the thing to the anime club screening that no one's ever heard of that's actually really good, just take this show and show it to them. You don't even need to watch it.
If you want to be that guy who goes to anime cons and gets a free badge and stands up on stage like this, then you can just learn about all these crazy shows and then make a panel about them. It's a really good strategy.
Damagadobutsu.
Oh my god, cute animals.
Who suck.
Who suck. Damagadobutsu basically means like no good animals, right? So it's all about these animals who are the opposite of what they should be, right? So the bunny is not pure and happy and cute and bouncy. He's solitary and untrusting.
Yeah, the unicorn's an alcoholic.
The eagle can't see.
Yep. Pretty much everyone in the show sucks. Really hard.
At what they're supposed to be good at. Like the cheetah is clumsy instead of graceful and fast.
Now, if I'm selling this to inside baseball anime fans, because there is a time you want to sell the Excel Saga. You know how a lot of shows, people go super deformed? Like they'll be normal character and then they go super deformed. This show does the opposite. They're always super deformed, and occasionally they un-super deform and look ultra realistic and super serious. So it's got like the opposite going on, the change up. Also, the whole thing's on YouTube. You can just watch it.
Yeah, it's a short show, right? So if you need to get someone to like watch anime in general, it's good to find these short shows like this. Each episode is, I think the opener and the closer are as long as the episode if you combine them, right? So, and there's only like a few of them. So you can burn through this thing really fast, especially if you cut the openers and closers off, as opposed to trying to get someone to watch like, you know, a full 30-minute episode of something.
I would also sell this show if I know someone's into cosplay. I've seen some amazing cosplays from this show.
It looks pretty easy to do a cosplay from this show.
Yeah, but you can go pretty elaborate.
Cheetah
on
Girl,
it.
pretty easy.
Well, I mean, it's basically people dressed up as animals, but maybe they're really the animals, but it doesn't really matter.
You gotta dress up as a person, dressed up as a person, dressed up as the animal. Then you've got it going on.
So, a lot of people like to recommend bad anime. That's advanced anime
Just say
recommendations.
this.
Because a lot of times when someone says, oh, let's watch this terrible show, it'll be hilarious, it's never hilarious. It's boring. Yes, there's that awesome thing we do at cons where, hey, let's all go to a room and watch Odin.
Yeah, it's because we're all anime fans already. We all understand the thing we're getting into, right? We can laugh at how bad the thing is, right? If someone who doesn't know anime at all, right, and isn't in that sort of right setting, like, we are going to watch something bad, guys, you know, you try to show them this or, like, tell them to watch it as, like, a practical joke, they're just going to punch you in the face when they see you again, right? And they're probably not going to finish watching it either. I hope they have the, you know, willpower to turn it off. Otherwise, ooh.
Now, more importantly, you might think that you have the ability to make it funny. That you guys are going to be like MST3K. You're going to be sitting around cracking jokes. It's going to be hilarious.
If you were that good, you would be on riff tracks, not listening to riff tracks.
That never happens in real life. You think it happens, it doesn't. I've been in that boat. It is so... You've been in a screening, like in an anime club or at a con, where that guy yells out his joke in the middle of the show. How often is that joke actually funny? And the few times it is, usually that just encourages that guy, and then he won't shut up for the entire rest of the show. So if you think you can recommend bad anime, and then hang out and have a fun time drinking and watching that bad anime, 99% of the time you're going to be wrong. If you insist on doing this sort of thing, you've got to pick the right kind of bad anime. Odin is sort of the poster child for the bad anime. But it is terrible to actually watch. There is no way to enjoy watching Odin as a bad anime. It's too long, it's too boring, it's only one step better than Grey Digital Target. You want to recommend a bad anime? Let's watch some Zaizen Jotaro. Let's watch some, I don't know, MD Geist. MD Geist can be made fun of because it's bad, But stuff happens. It's bad enough to be funny. It's bad enough to be made fun of. This shit's just boring. So, we've gone on for a while. We've given some tricks. We've sort of taught you, at least I hope, on how to recommend anime and why no one listens to your anime recommendations. But I think really the gist of it is that one of the things you need to do if you want to recommend anime is that aside from building up your reputation and aside from using these tricks, is you have to have seen every show. You really have to know about all the anime that's out there, especially anime that's more than a few years old.
Yeah, I mean, how can you be like an anime connoisseur, like a recommender of anime, if you only know about like 20, 30 animes, right? It's like, if you go to a liquor store, you see how many wines they have there? Like hundreds and hundreds of wines. And you want to recommend someone a wine, because you had a good one last week, but you've only ever had 10 wines in your life, right? Do you really know? You don't even know about all the possible choices there are. How can you possibly pick the right one for that person? Right? So if you want to be an anime recommender, you need to have watched a ton of anime. And based on the hands raised, if people haven't seen Madoka, just don't tell anyone what to watch, people. Right? You're not ready yet.
Now, at the same time, Madoka, at least it came out very recently, so it could fall under the gaze of, well, maybe I've seen it too recently, maybe I need to back off a little bit and wait to see if it holds up the test of time.
Not to inflate my own ego balloon, right? But like I went to the Anime News Network and looked like the top 100 animes, right? I had seen almost all of them, right? At least partially, and I knew what every single one of them was, right? So it's like, yeah, I think I know enough animes out there that I can tell people what they should watch, right? If you go to the home, look at the Anime News Network top 100 animes in their encyclopedia, and if you're like, what's that, don't tell people what to watch. You don't know, right?
Now, it also makes sense to understand something about anime you don't like. I don't like shonen fighting shows, at least modern ones. I think shows like Bleach and One Piece and Naruto, I just really can't get into them. But one, I know enough about them to say proper nouns from those shows
and
in panels.
To convince people that he has watched them when he hasn't.
Or two, I know enough about them to know that's a dude who's really going to like Soul Eater.
I don't watch Soul Eater, but I know what Soul Eater is, and I know what a Soul Eater watcher looks like. So if I see a Soul Eater watcher and he hasn't heard of Soul Eater, I'm like, dude, Soul Eater.
I watched one episode of Soul Eater so that I would know what kind of style it was in, and also to prove to myself that it was the show I expected it to be.
And it was.
Now, also, once you've seen enough anime, and you've been to conventions for so long, going all the way back to Fushigi Yugi, nowadays, I'm pretty sure I can pick out the shows that are gonna be the Fushigi Yugis when they're popular. Like Full Metal Alchemist was the last show that tricked me. While I was watching it, episode by episode, it was the best show ever. It was the show, everyone's watching it, everyone's talking about every episode as it comes out. I'd be like just F5ing on torrents, just waiting for the earliest bad fan sub to come out. And yeah, in retrospect, it was an okay show, it wasn't great. I think you can detect those shows better if you've seen all the other shows like it. I mean, Ranma One Half used to be the show that everyone cosplayed as. Everyone knew it. It was the archetypical anime. And now, almost everyone I meet at anime cons hasn't seen it, or hasn't seen much of it, or maybe doesn't even know what it is. So, there's always going to be the super popular show right now. And if you just start watching and recommending a lot of anime, you're eventually going to be able to pick out, right now, this show's not going anywhere, this show's going to be remembered. I'm confident in saying that Madoka is going to be remembered. It's going to be one of those shows that people keep bringing up and talking about.
And if you want to see us look at new shows and tell you what we think is going to happen to them, we're doing a panel, I guess, later today.
We're doing that at tomorrow, Saturday, 4:15. We're doing Judge Anime by its cover. We were talking about that before the panel started, but basically, we did a thing on Geek Nights a while ago where we just started reviewing tons of anime just by looking at pictures. And some people took issue with this. They decided,
even though we told them beforehand, yeah, we're just going to be prejudiced and judge things by their cover, we totally know we could be wrong.
But no, how do you know that creepy-looking show about all those young girls with shiny butts playing tennis is going to be a creepy show aimed at creepy people? How do you know? It might be good.
It's possible. We could be wrong. But you know what? It turns out, yeah, we said we were going to be prejudiced. We were prejudiced, judging by scant information, judging by the cover, and people complained, even though we said we were doing it, and we were 100% right.
But at the same time, I mean, would we judge that show by its cover?
I did for about a month.
Yeah, I did too. In fact, my anecdote about how I show people episode 18 of Utena to get them to watch it, that is how I was tricked into watching it. I went over to a person's house, and they were in the middle of watching Utena, and I had always dismissed the show because it looked like that. and they showed me episode 18.
Because that's the episode they were on.
Yep. And I watched it, and I was like, oh, that's pretty crazy. And then later, I came back, like a week later, and they showed some of this car crap at the end. And I decided that it was a show worth watching, and you should all watch it too, because seriously, Shota Kakamei goes from that to that. And yes, they're riding a motorbike with a little sidecar. And yes, he's holding a sword, and that's the end
And
result.
his shirt's coming off.
So we actually have some time. We're in this room next.
So you can just say where you are, don't need to leave. We can just close the door and trap you in. That's good.
But what that means is we can actually take a couple of questions. So if you